Learn to act as if nothing bothers you, not because nothing hurts, but because you refuse to let every passing moment control you. Life will always test you. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. Words will be spoken without care. If your peace depends on all of that going right, you will spend your life disturbed, exhausted, and reactive. Strength begins the moment you stop handing your inner state to the outside world. Acting as if nothing bothers you does not mean you feel nothing. It means you feel everything without becoming a slave to it. You notice anger rise, but you do not let it speak for you. You feel disappointment, but you do not let it collapse you. You experience stress, you do not let it dictate your behavior. This is not emotional suppression. This is emotional mastery. Most things that bother people are not truly dangerous. They are threats to ego, expectations, or comfort. A comment feels offensive because it challenges identity. A delay feels unbearable because it challenges control. A mistake feels painful because it challenges self-image. When you see this clearly, you realize that peace is not destroyed by events, by interpretation. When you react immediately, you give away power. Anyone who can provoke your emotions can control your actions. If a single comment can ruin your day, your stability is fragile. Acting unbothered is not pretending. It is choosing not to react until you understand. Calmness is not weakness, it is authority over yourself. Stillness in the face of chaos unsettles those who expect reaction. Silence in the face of provocation removes fuel. When you stop explaining, defending, and justifying yourself to everyone, your energy returns to you. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every battle deserves your effort. Wisdom is knowing what to ignore. Life becomes lighter when you stop personalizing everything. Someone's behavior is a reflection of their inner world, not your worth. Someone's success does not diminish you. Someone's failure does not define you. When you detach your identity from outcomes and opinions, disturbances lose their grip. Acting as if nothing bothers you also requires discipline. The mind wants comfort, validation, and control. Discipline trains it to pause, breathe, to observe, to choose. This pause is where freedom lives. Without it, reactions are automatic and regret follows. You do not need to announce your strength. Real strength is quiet. It shows in restraint, patience, and consistency. It shows in your ability to walk away from unnecessary conflict. It shows in your refusal to be dragged into drama. It shows in your ability to stay composed when others lose control. The world will not become calmer for you. People will not suddenly become more considerate. Problems will not disappear. Waiting for that is wasted time. Only real change happens within. When you train your mind, external chaos loses influence. When anger appears, ask yourself if reacting will improve the situation or only satisfy a momentary impulse. When fear appears, ask whether it is protecting you or limiting you. When ego demands response, ask what you are really defending. These questions weaken disturbance before it turns into action. Acting unbothered is not indifference. You still care deeply. You just care wisely. You choose where to invest your energy. You understand that peace is more valuable than being right, and clarity is more powerful than noise. Over time, this way of living builds unshakable confidence. You trust yourself because you know you can handle discomfort. You are not afraid of emotions because you are not controlled by them. You are not desperate for approval because you are grounded in self-respect. When you stop reacting, you start seeing clearly. When you see clearly, you act effectively. When you act effectively, life stops feeling like a constant battle. Challenges become manageable. Criticism becomes information. Failure becomes instruction. Learn to act as if nothing bothers you, not because you are unaffected, but because you are anchored. Because you know that your peace is not fragile. Because you understand that the strongest person in the room is not the loudest, but the calmest. Because you have realized that nothing outside you is powerful enough to control the inside unless you allow it. Control is internal, not external, yet most people live as if the opposite were true. They believe peace will arrive when circumstances improve, when people behave differently, when problems disappear, or when life finally aligns with their expectations. This belief quietly hands power away. It creates a mindset where emotions, confidence, and stability are constantly dependent on forces outside oneself. In such a state, the individual becomes reactive, fragile, and easily disturbed. Truth is uncomfortable, but liberating the world has never been under your control, and it never will be. External events are neutral by nature. They simply happen. What gives them weight, meaning, and emotional impact is the interpretation placed upon them. Two people can experience the same situation and respond in completely different ways. One feels defeated, the other remains calm. The difference is not intelligence, luck, or strength. The difference is control of the inner world. When you understand that your reaction is a choice, not an obligation, you reclaim authority over your life. Most people confuse control with suppression. They think internal control means denying emotions, forcing positivity, or pretending nothing hurts. This is a misunderstanding. True internal control begins with awareness. You notice anger without becoming it. You feel fear without letting it decide your actions. You acknowledge pain without allowing it to define you. Emotions are natural signals, but they are not commands. When you obey every emotional impulse, you are no longer in control, you are being led. The external world is unpredictable by design. People act according to their own fears, desires, and limitations. Situations unfold without regard for personal comfort. If your stability depends on everything going right, instability becomes your permanent state. Internal control shifts the focus from demanding the world to change, to training the self to adapt. This is not resignation, it is resilience. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, how will I respond to this? Ego is one of the greatest obstacles to internal control. Many reactions are not about harm, but about identity. A comment feels like an attack. A disagreement feels like disrespect. A failure feels like a judgment of worth. When the ego is in charge, every external stimulus becomes personal. Internal control requires separating events from self-worth. You are not diminished by criticism, delayed by obstacles, or defined by outcomes. Once this separation is clear, emotional reactions lose their grip. Discipline plays a crucial role in developing internal control. The mind, like the body, follows patterns shaped by repetition. If you repeatedly react with anger, avoidance, or anxiety, those reactions become automatic. Discipline interrupts this cycle. Through conscious pauses, controlled breathing, and deliberate silence, you retrain the nervous system. Over time, what once triggered immediate reaction begins to register as information rather than threat. Another misconception is that control means winning or dominating others. In reality, the person who needs to dominate is already controlled by insecurity. True control is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek validation. It is visible in restraint, patience, and consistency. When provocation no longer produces reaction, power shifts internally. The one who can remain calm in chaos holds the advantage, not because they suppress emotion, but because they are not enslaved by it. Internal control also requires acceptance of discomfort. Growth does not happen in ease. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid development. External challenges test internal stability. Each challenge becomes a training ground where awareness can either strengthen or collapse. Those who cultivate control do not ask for easier lives, they build stronger minds. They understand that resistance to reality creates suffering, while acceptance creates clarity. Silence is a powerful expression of internal control. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every impulse needs action. Silence creates space between stimulus and response. In that space lies choice. Many conflicts escalate not because they are serious, but because reactions are immediate and unconscious. The ability to remain silent, to observe, and to choose a response is a sign of mastery over the self. Internal control does not remove problems, it changes the relationship with them. Problems become situations to navigate rather than threats to survive. Fear becomes information rather than paralysis. Anger becomes energy rather than destruction. This transformation does not occur suddenly. It is built through consistent practice, reflection, and accountability. When you stop trying to control people, outcomes, and circumstances, energy previously wasted on resistance becomes available for growth. You invest that energy inward, where influence is real and lasting. You realize that while you cannot choose what happens next, you can always choose who you are in response. This understanding brings a quiet confidence that does not depend on praise, success, or approval. Internal control is not about being unaffected, it is about being unshaken. Life continues to challenge, provoke, and test. The difference is that these experiences no longer dictate inner stability. You become grounded in something deeper than circumstance. From that ground, clarity replaces confusion, intention replaces impulse, and strength replaces reactivity. The world remains unpredictable. You are no longer at its mercy. Emotions are visitors, not masters, yet many people live as if every emotion that arises must immediately take control of their thoughts, words, actions. A feeling appears, and without questioning it, they obey it. Anger demands reaction. Fear demands avoidance. Sadness demands withdrawal. Over time, this habit creates a life ruled by emotional impulses rather than conscious choice. Understanding emotions as visitors changes this relationship completely. Visitors arrive, stay for a while, and eventually leave. They are acknowledged, not obeyed. Every emotion has a purpose. Fear exists to protect. Anger signals boundaries. Sadness reflects loss. Joy encourages connection. None of these emotions are wrong or unnecessary. The problem begins when emotions are given authority instead of awareness. When you identify with an emotion, it stops being an experience and becomes an identity. I am angry becomes I am anger. I feel afraid becomes I am weak. This fusion removes distance, and without distance, there is no control. Emotions arise from interpretation, not reality itself. Two people can face the same situation and feel entirely different emotions because each mind assigns different meaning to what is happening. The event is neutral. The emotional response is personal. This realization restores responsibility. If emotions were purely external, there would be nothing to train or develop. But because they are internal responses, they can be observed, understood, and refined. Many people fear that if they do not act on their emotions, they are suppressing them. Suppression and observation are not the same. Suppression pushes emotions down, creating tension and long-term imbalance. Observation allows emotions to exist without letting them dictate behavior. You feel anger fully, but you do not let it speak for you. You feel fear clearly, but you do not let it make decisions. This approach requires patience and honesty, not force. The mind reacts faster than awareness. This is why emotions often feel sudden and overwhelming. A thought triggers a feeling. The feeling triggers a reaction, and only afterward does reasoning appear. Training begins by slowing this chain. A pause, even a brief one, creates separation. In that separation, you see the emotion as something happening within you, not something that defines you. This is the moment where mastery becomes possible. Emotions gain power when they are resisted or judged. When you label an emotion as bad, weak, or unacceptable, it often grows stronger. Resistance creates conflict inside the mind. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows emotions to pass naturally. Accepting an emotion does not mean agreeing with it or acting on it. It means allowing it to exist without internal struggle. When emotions are no longer fought, they lose their intensity. Many emotional reactions are rooted in the past. Old experiences, unresolved pain, and learned patterns shape present responses. The emotion belongs to the moment, but its intensity often comes from memory. Without awareness, the past hijacks the present. By observing emotions instead of obeying them, you begin to distinguish what is happening now from what once happened. This distinction weakens emotional control and strengthens clarity. Social conditioning also reinforces emotional slavery. People are taught to express everything immediately, to react honestly, to follow their feelings. While expression has value, uncontrolled expression often leads to regret. Honesty without awareness becomes impulsiveness. Emotional maturity is not about feeling less, it is about responding better. The ability to hold an emotion without releasing it immediately is a sign of inner strength, not repression. Emotions are temporary by nature. No feeling, no matter how intense, stays forever. When you believe an emotion will last, panic increases. When you know it will pass, patience becomes possible. This understanding transforms suffering. Pain is experienced, but it does not turn into despair. Anxiety arises, but it does not turn into paralysis. The knowledge of impermanence creates stability even during emotional storms. The body plays a crucial role in emotional mastery. Emotions are not only mental, they are physical sensations. Tightness in the chest, heat in the face, heaviness in the stomach. By focusing on the physical sensation instead of the story attached to it, you ground awareness in the present. The story fuels the emotion. The sensation simply exists. When attention shifts to the body, emotional intensity often decreases. Emotional mastery does not mean emotional absence. A controlled person still feels deeply. They experience joy without attachment, sadness without collapse, anger without destruction. They allow emotions to inform, not command. This balance creates freedom. You are no longer pushed and pulled by internal weather. You remain centered regardless of what arises. When emotions are treated as visitors, self-respect grows. You stop blaming others for how you feel. You stop excusing harmful behavior as emotional honesty. You take responsibility for your inner world. This responsibility is not heavy, it is empowering. It means your peace is not dependent on others changing. Over time, consistent observation builds trust within yourself. You know that no matter what emotion appears, you can handle it. This confidence reduces fear of emotional pain. When fear disappears, emotions lose their grip. They still come and go, but they no longer rule. Awareness remains steady, watching each visitor arrive, stay briefly, and leave without taking anything with it. Stillness is strength, yet in a world that celebrates noise, speed, and constant reaction, stillness is often mistaken for weakness. People assume that power must be loud, visible, and forceful. They equate movement with progress and reaction with honesty. In reality, the opposite is often true. The ability to remain still, mentally, emotionally, and physically, requires discipline, awareness, and courage. Ness is not the absence of action. It is the foundation of effective action. When the mind is restless, every stimulus feels urgent. Thoughts collide, emotions surge, and decisions become impulsive. In this state, a person is easily influenced and easily controlled. Stillness interrupts this chaos. It creates a pause in which perception sharpens and clarity emerges. From stillness, one can see situations as they are rather than as emotions distort them. This clarity is a form of strength because it prevents unnecessary mistakes. Stillness does not mean passivity. It means choosing not to react automatically. Reaction is often unconscious, driven by fear, ego, or habit. Stillness allows choice. In moments of conflict, the person who remains still gains the advantage, not by overpowering the other, by understanding the situation more deeply. When one side reacts emotionally and the other remains calm, calm side controls the direction of the interaction. Emotional storms test the depth of stillness. Anger urges expression. Anxiety urges escape. Pride urges defense. Stillness holds these urges without obeying them. This restraint is not suppression, it is mastery. Suppression hides emotion, creating internal tension. Stillness allows emotion to exist without letting it spill into action. Internal balance preserves energy and focus. In difficult situations, stillness acts as an anchor. While external conditions may be unstable, internal stillness provides grounding. This grounding allows the body to relax, the breath to deepen, and the mind to settle. Physiologically, stillness reduces stress responses and prevents escalation. Psychologically, it creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, wisdom replaces impulse. Modern life conditions people to fear stillness. Silence feels uncomfortable. Inactivity feels unproductive. Many seek constant distraction to avoid facing their own thoughts. Stillness removes distractions, revealing the inner state. This exposure can be uncomfortable, which is why it is often avoided. But discomfort is not danger. Facing inner noise through stillness is how strength is built. Avoidance weakens the mind, stillness trains it. Stillness also protects against manipulation. Those who react quickly are predictable. Their triggers are visible and exploitable. Person reveals nothing. They listen more than they speak. They observe more than they assume. This makes them difficult to influence and easy to underestimate. Their strength is quiet and therefore underestimated, which further protects it. The strongest decisions are rarely made in haste. Stillness allows information to settle before action is taken. It prevents regret born from impulsive speech or rash behavior. When emotions run high, words spoken in reaction often create lasting damage. Stillness holds words back until intention is clear. Silence in these moments becomes a form of responsibility. Physical stillness reflects mental discipline. The ability to sit, stand, or remain composed under pressure mirrors internal control. When the body is restless, the mind often follows. Training physical stillness through posture, breathing, presence reinforces mental stability. The body becomes an ally rather than a distraction. Stillness also deepens perception. When the mind slows, subtle details become visible. Tone of voice shifts in energy, unspoken intentions. These details are missed in reactive states. Awareness, sharpened by stillness, allows more accurate understanding of people and situations. Understanding reduces fear, and reduced fear strengthens composure. In moments of provocation, stillness feels unnatural. The instinct is to defend, explain, or retaliate. Choosing stillness requires confidence. Signals that self-worth does not depend on immediate validation. This confidence unsettles those who seek reaction. When provocation fails, its power disappears. Stillness builds endurance. Emotional reactions drain energy. Mental agitation exhausts focus. By remaining still, energy is conserved and redirected toward purposeful action. Over time, this creates resilience. Challenges feel lighter, not because they are smaller, but because the inner response is stronger. Stillness does not mean withdrawing from life. It means engaging from a place of control. Action taken from stillness is deliberate, precise, and effective. Action taken from agitation is scattered and reactive. One builds results, the other builds consequences. The mind trained in stillness becomes difficult to disturb. External chaos no longer dictates internal state. This stability creates a sense of safety within oneself. When safety is internal, dependence on external reassurance fades. Confidence becomes rooted, not situational. Stillness is cultivated through practice. It grows with awareness of breath, posture, and thought patterns. Each moment of restraint strengthens it. Each moment of observation deepens it. Over time, stillness becomes natural, not forced. It becomes the default response rather than an effort. In a world that constantly pushes for reaction, choosing stillness is an act of strength. It is the strength to wait, to observe, to understand, and to respond only when necessary. It is the strength to remain composed when others lose control. It is the strength that cannot be taken because it is built within. Ego is the root of disturbance because it is the part of the mind that constantly seeks validation, control, and superiority. It measures worth through comparison and reacts defensively whenever that image is threatened. Most inner turmoil does not arise from real danger or harm, but from perceived attacks on identity. When ego is active, every situation becomes personal, every disagreement becomes an insult, and every challenge becomes a threat to self-worth. Ego is built from accumulated beliefs about who we are. Titles, achievements, opinions, roles, past experiences shape this constructed identity. Once formed, the ego demands protection. It resists change, criticism, and uncertainty. Any situation that contradicts its narrative creates discomfort. This discomfort is often mistaken for external injustice. Its true source is internal attachment to a self-image. Disturbance begins when the ego equates disagreement with disrespect. Someone challenges an idea, and the ego hears rejection. Someone succeeds, and the ego feels diminished. Someone ignores expectations, and the ego feels unimportant. These reactions are automatic because the ego depends on external feedback to maintain its sense of value. Without constant reinforcement, it feels unstable. The ego thrives on comparison. It measures itself against others to determine status. This habit ensures disturbance because there will always be someone more skilled, more successful, or more admired. Comparison creates a cycle of insecurity and pride, both of which disturb inner balance. Pride fears loss. Insecurity fears exposure. Both generate anxiety and defensiveness. Ego also distorts perception. Instead of seeing situations clearly, filters them through personal bias. Neutral actions are interpreted as intentional slights. Constructive feedback becomes criticism. Boundaries become rejection. This distortion fuels emotional reactions that feel justified but are rooted in misinterpretation. As long as ego controls perception, peace remains unstable. Many conflicts persist not because of the issue itself, but because the ego refuses to let go. The need to be right overrides the desire for resolution. Apologies feel like defeat. Compromise feels like weakness. The ego prioritizes image over harmony. This insistence creates prolonged tension and unnecessary suffering. Ego resists responsibility. When something goes wrong, it looks outward for blame. Accepting fault threatens the image of competence and control. By avoiding responsibility, the ego protects itself in the short term, but creates long-term stagnation. Growth requires honest self-examination, which ego avoids because it exposes imperfection. Fear is deeply connected to ego. The ego fears loss of status, control, and recognition. This fear manifests as anger, jealousy, and defensiveness. These emotions are not reactions to reality, but to imagined threats. The ego confuses uncertainty with danger, making change feel threatening even when it is beneficial. Ego also seeks constant stimulation. Praise feeds it. Attention sustains it. Conflict excites it. Silence starves it. This is why many feel uncomfortable in stillness. Without external engagement, the ego loses reference points. Disturbance often increases in quiet moments because the ego feels unseen. Learning to sit with this discomfort weakens ego's grip. Letting go of ego does not mean losing confidence or identity. It means loosening attachment to a fixed self-image. When identity becomes flexible, feedback becomes information rather than judgment. Failure becomes a lesson rather than a verdict. Success becomes an experience rather than a definition. This flexibility reduces disturbance because nothing feels permanently at stake. Humility is not self-neglect, it is self-clarity. It recognizes strengths without attachment and weaknesses without shame. A humble mind is difficult to disturb because it does not need to defend an image. It adapts instead of resists. It listens instead of reacts. It learns instead of competes. Ego seeks control over outcomes to maintain its narrative. When outcomes differ from expectations, frustration arises. This frustration is not about the result, but about the loss of control. Accepting uncertainty dissolves much of this tension. When control is released, attention shifts to effort rather than outcome. This shift reduces anxiety and restores focus. The ego also isolates. By emphasizing separation, it creates an versus them mindset. This separation fuels judgment and misunderstanding. When the sense of self expands beyond ego, connection becomes possible. Understanding replaces defensiveness. Compassion replaces competition. These qualities naturally calm the mind. Observing ego is the first step to loosening its influence. When reactions arise, noticing the need to protect image or status exposes ego's role. This observation creates distance. With distance, choice becomes possible. The reaction may still appear, but it no longer dictates behavior. As ego loses dominance, disturbance decreases. Situations remain the same. The internal response changes. Criticism no longer destabilizes. Praise no longer inflates. Outcomes no longer define worth. The mind becomes steadier because it is no longer defending a fragile construct. True stability comes from recognizing that identity is not something to protect, but something to understand. When the need to constantly affirm who you are dissolves, peace becomes natural. The absence of ego-driven reactions creates space for clarity, resilience, and balance, allowing life to unfold without constant inner resistance. Discipline creates freedom, yet many people see discipline as restriction, punishment, or loss of pleasure. They associate it with rigid rules, forced routines, and a joyless life. This misunderstanding causes them to resist discipline while unknowingly accepting far greater restrictions. A life without discipline is not free, it is controlled by impulses, habits, and circumstances. True freedom is the ability to choose one's actions deliberately rather than being driven by momentary desires. Without discipline, the mind follows the path of least resistance. It seeks comfort, avoidance, and immediate gratification. These tendencies feel natural. Over time, they create dependence. Dependence on stimulation, validation, and distraction reduces choice. When a person cannot sit in silence, cannot delay pleasure, or cannot stay focused, freedom is already lost. Discipline interrupts this automatic behavior and restores choice. Discipline begins with structure. Structure provides boundaries within which energy can be directed effectively. When days lack structure, time is consumed rather than used, tasks are delayed, goals remain vague, and stress accumulates. With discipline, time becomes intentional. Small, consistent actions compound into meaningful progress. This consistency reduces chaos and creates stability, which is a form of freedom. Mental discipline is as important as physical discipline. A mind that reacts to every thought is easily exhausted. Thoughts arise constantly. Not all deserve attention. Discipline trains the mind to focus on what matters and ignore what does not. Selective attention reduces anxiety and increases clarity. When attention is disciplined, mental space opens. This space allows creativity, reflection, and calm to emerge. Many believe freedom means doing whatever they want, whenever they want. In reality, this leads to dependence on mood. Motivation fluctuates, energy shifts, and emotions change. When action depends on feeling, consistency disappears. Discipline removes this dependency. Action becomes based on commitment rather than emotion. This reliability builds self-trust. When you trust yourself to act regardless of mood, freedom increases. Discipline also strengthens the ability to endure discomfort. Growth requires effort, and effort often involves discomfort. Without discipline, discomfort is avoided. With discipline, discomfort is faced with intention. This ability expands capacity. What once felt difficult becomes manageable. Over time, the range of what you can handle widens, and life feels less overwhelming. Physical discipline affects mental freedom. When the body is neglected, energy decreases and focus weakens. Simple disciplines such as movement, posture, breathing, and rest regulate the nervous system. A regulated body supports a calm mind. When physical needs are met through disciplined habits, mental resilience improves. This resilience reduces dependence on external comfort. Discipline also protects against regret. Many regrets come from inaction, impulsive decisions, or lack of preparation. Discipline reduces these outcomes by creating foresight. Planning, practice, and restraint prevent unnecessary consequences. Freedom is not only about options, but about avoiding self-created limitations. Financial freedom, creative freedom, and emotional freedom all rely on discipline. Saving requires restraint. Creating requires routine. Emotional stability requires regulation. In each case, discipline precedes freedom. Without it, resources are wasted, projects remain unfinished, and emotions remain volatile. Discipline reduces internal conflict. When values are clear and actions align with them, the mind becomes peaceful. Indecision and inconsistency create tension. Discipline simplifies choices. Decisions become guided by principle rather than impulse. Alignment creates inner harmony, which feels like freedom. Social freedom also depends on discipline. The ability to listen, pause before speaking, and to respect boundaries prevents unnecessary conflict. Without discipline, words are spoken impulsively, damaging relationships. With discipline, communication becomes intentional. Trust grows and relationships strengthen, reducing emotional strain. Discipline is often associated with force, but true discipline is rooted in self-respect. It is the decision to care enough about your future to act responsibly in the present. This perspective transforms discipline from obligation into empowerment. You are not denying yourself pleasure. You are investing in long-term stability. Many people fear discipline because it exposes avoidance. It reveals wasted time, inconsistent effort, unfulfilled potential. Facing this truth can be uncomfortable, but avoidance carries a greater cost. Discipline replaces guilt with progress. Each small act of discipline reinforces confidence. Confidence built through action is stable and lasting. Freedom without discipline is short-lived. It collapses under pressure. Discipline builds a foundation that supports freedom over time. It allows flexibility because it creates reliability. When basic habits are stable, adaptation becomes easier. Ability and flexibility coexist rather than conflict. Discipline also creates freedom from others' expectations. When you are disciplined, you rely less on external direction. You become self-guided. This independence reduces susceptibility to pressure and manipulation. You choose your path rather than follow trends. The paradox of discipline is that it limits in order to liberate. By limiting distractions, frees focus. By limiting indulgence, it frees energy. By limiting chaos, it frees creativity. These limits are chosen, not imposed. This choice makes all the difference. Through discipline, effort becomes natural and resistance fades. What once required motivation becomes habit. Habits reduce friction. Reduced friction increases freedom. Life feels lighter not because demands disappear, but because capacity increases. Discipline is not about perfection. It allows for mistakes and adjustment. Its strength lies in consistency, not rigidity. When practiced with awareness, discipline adapts rather than constrains. It supports growth rather than stifles it. Freedom is not found in the absence of rules, in the presence of self-governance. Discipline is the mechanism of that governance. It turns intention into action and potential into reality. When discipline is internalized, freedom is no longer something to chase. It becomes the natural state of a life directed with purpose and control. Silence is a form of wisdom, yet it is often misunderstood as weakness, avoidance, or lack of intelligence. In a world where expression is encouraged at every moment, silence appears passive. People feel pressure to respond, to explain, to defend, and to assert themselves constantly. This pressure creates noise not only in conversation but in the mind. Silence cuts through this noise. It creates space where understanding can arise without interference. Words have power, but so does the decision not to use them. Speaking without awareness often reveals more than intended. It exposes insecurity, emotion, and impulse. Silence, on the other hand, protects intention. When you remain silent, you observe. When you observe, you learn. Many situations do not require immediate response, and wisdom lies in recognizing which ones do. Silence allows information to settle. When conversation is constant, there is little time to process what is being said. Responses become reactions rather than thoughtful contributions. By remaining silent, the mind absorbs tone, context, and nuance. Understanding deepens. What seemed urgent often loses importance when viewed without emotional noise. Silence is closely connected to self-control. The urge to speak often comes from the ego's need to be seen, validated, or right. Silence resists this urge. It demonstrates confidence that does not require constant proof. A person who can remain silent in the face of provocation shows mastery over impulse. This mastery is a quiet strength that others sense even if they do not understand it. In conflict, silence can de-escalate tension. When one side reacts emotionally, silence removes fuel. Arguments thrive on response. Without it, intensity fades. Silence in these moments is not surrender, it is strategic restraint. It allows emotions to settle before decisions are made. Many conflicts resolve themselves when unnecessary words are withheld. Silence also reveals truth. People often fill silence with honesty. When space is created, others speak more freely. This makes silence a powerful listening tool. True listening requires restraint, not interruption. It requires the ability to set aside personal responses in order to fully receive another's perspective. Through silence, understanding becomes possible. Inner silence is as important as external silence. A noisy mind distorts perception. Thoughts compete for attention, creating confusion and stress. Inner silence does not mean the absence of thought, the absence of identification with thought. When thoughts are observed rather than followed, mental clarity emerges. Clarity supports wiser decisions. Silence cultivates patience. It slows the pace of interaction and thought. In this slowing, impulsive reactions lose momentum. Patience allows emotions to pass and insight to surface. Without patience, our words are often used to release tension rather than communicate meaning. Many mistakes are made through unnecessary speech. Words spoken in anger cannot be retrieved. Promises made impulsively create obligation. Explanations given prematurely invite misunderstanding. Silence prevents these outcomes. It creates a buffer between emotion and expression. Silence also protects personal boundaries. Not everything needs to be shared. Overexposure weakens presence. When everything is spoken, nothing holds weight. Silence preserves depth. It allows words to carry meaning when they are finally used. In leadership, silence commands respect. Leaders who speak constantly dilute their message. Those who speak selectively are listened to. Silence signals that words are chosen carefully. Selectivity builds credibility and authority without force. Silence strengthens observation. Body language, subtle shifts, unspoken intentions become visible. These details are missed when attention is focused on speaking. Observation informs action. Action informed by observation is precise rather than reactive. Silence also allows self-reflection. Without silence, the mind remains outwardly focused. Reflection requires turning inward. Through silence, patterns become visible. Habits, reactions, and motivations reveal themselves. This self-awareness is the foundation of wisdom. The discomfort people feel with silence reveals its power. Silence removes distraction. It exposes inner unrest. Many avoid silence because it confronts them with unresolved thoughts. Sitting with this discomfort builds resilience. Avoiding it sustains fragility. Silence does not reject communication, it refines it. When silence is valued, speech becomes intentional. Words are chosen for clarity rather than quantity. Communication improves because it is rooted in awareness rather than impulse. In emotionally charged moments, silence provides protection. It prevents escalation and regret. By holding silence, you allow yourself time to regain composure. From composure, responses become measured rather than reactive. Silence also creates equality in interaction. It allows others space to exist without dominance. It communicates respect without agreement. This balance encourages openness and trust. In a culture that rewards constant output, choosing silence is an act of independence. It is the refusal to be pulled into unnecessary noise. It is the decision to preserve clarity and energy. Silence teaches that not every thought requires expression, and not every emotion requires release. This understanding reduces internal pressure. The mind becomes lighter when it no longer feels obligated to respond to everything. Wisdom is not proven through volume. It is revealed through timing. Silence sharpens this timing. It allows insight to mature before expression. When words finally emerge, carry weight because they rise from stillness rather than urgency.